Well, thanks for watching Morning Live. Many of you sending us your requests, many of you disappointed with the service you've received. And as we've said from the onset, we shall endeavour to get answers to your questions. Now, June was the last month for the Unemployment Insurance Fund, or UIF, to make payments for the period of the lockdown. The fund, which is referred to as the Temporary Employee Relief Scheme, or TERS, has paid out via the Labour Department to unemployed people in order to counter the joblessness as a result of the lockdown restrictions. Now, in total, the UIF says that it has disbursed close to 28 billion rand since mid-April. However, the fund was plagued with complaints ranging from a lack of information to individuals not receiving money and also allegations of corruption at the employer level. Now, UIF Commissioner Teboho Maruping joins us now via Zoom. Thanks so much for your time. Welcome back to Morning Live.
Thanks, Sakina. It's good to be back on your show this morning.
So, Mr. Maruping, of the 28 billion rand paid out thus far since mid-April, how many individuals actually benefited and received the money?
We have about 6.1 million South Africans that have benefited as a result of UIF paying this 27 billion rands to South Africans.
And how many have not been paid?
It depends how you define not being paid. At this stage, there's 994,000 South Africans whose employers have applied for them, but they have not taken the steps to insure them. So we don't know whether we should treat them as ghost employees or the employer was just playing their luck to push them in. We're not sure at this stage, and we've asked the employers to declare the relationship they have with these employees so that we can process the payment.
So, with regard to that, and then we've had many complaints. You and I spoke about this the last time we spoke on this show, that there are employers who are actually, who have claimed on behalf of their employees, but the money was never paid over to the employees. Have you had opportunity to look into those situations? And if so, what did you find?
Yeah, we've looked at the couple. At this stage, we've investigated 75 cases. Varying from the employer keeping the money or dividing the money amongst the employees. And when we engage the employers, they are saying, in some instances, they made a mistake by applying for people that were still at work at that point in time. Some of them have not declared the full workforce that is working for them. As a result, not every employee is insured. In fact, the majority of our problems emanate from employers who have not insured their employees, Sakina.
So, in that respect, what is your obligation as the UIF? Because employees have these UIF taxes deducted from their salaries, which are not paid over to you. So, what responsibility or duty do you have as UIF to follow up on that situation?
Well, there's a number of permutations that we are exploring. The first one, we are asking the employer to declare these employees at least, even though they may not have paid their contributions. Just go to our e-filing portal and declare employees so that we can pay their payments. The second option is that we are going to be sending our inspectors to these companies to inspect and confirm that people are employed there and issue a legal document that would going to force the employers to declare and pay contributions and pay penalties and interest to UIF. But once that is done, then we are able to pay the benefits due to the employees.
Realistically, though, do you have the capacity to actually do this work, and to what extent can you do it realistically? How many inspectors do you have to send out, and how many companies realistically can they inspect?
Yeah, realistically, Sakina, we don't have enough inspectors to inspect all the non-compliant companies. That's why, as a department, we've taken the rule of following the money. We are going to be employing a number of auditing firms that are going to be following the money across the country to follow all the 520,000 employers that we have paid to date. So we are going to be adding capacity. We are going to add 500 additional inspectors, but we are also going to be using the services of these auditors to follow the money, which will help us also as part of the inspection process.
So when you say you're going to add 500 additional inspectors, what does that mean? Will you be employing new inspectors from scratch, and for when? And what exactly will their duty be? What will their job description be?
Okay, we have a number, different types of inspectors. We have our OHS inspectors. We have our those that inspect issues that relates to UIF workers. And then we are going to be employing the 500 additional inspectors that are going to be inspecting companies with respect to adherence of employment equity, labor relations related matters, and also UIF related matters. The process already started. We've advertised. I think we've already employed a few of them, but due to the lockdown, we couldn't process the issues of interviews and bringing people to come over for interviews. But since the lockdown have relaxed now, we'll be moving swiftly to bring these inspectors on board.
So, Mr. Maruping, your last communication committed the UIF to ensuring that applications that were received in April and May have been registered on the system. So what is that process right now? How far are you? Because as it stands right now, you are not taking any more applications.
No, that's not true, Sakina. We are taking applications. We have not closed applications for April or for May at all. In fact, we've also just opened applications for June. So we continue to receive applications because we are conscious of the fact that there were some employers, for one reason or the other, they were excluded. And as we were amending the directives, we in the spirit of the pandemic, of course, putting bread on the table, we open and relax some of our rules to open more doors for domestic workers, for companies that were not just registered. So we've left it open. We are still in discussions on when we are going to be closing for April and May, but we have not closed yet, secondly.
So with regard to the lockdown period TERS applications, when does that close? Is it not supposed to stop as of the end of June?
Yes. We are paying for April, May, and June. That is with respect to payments. But then the application process is another thing. People can still apply until we pronounce that we are giving the country, let's say we'll give the country 14 days or 21 days. At this point, we are not going to be receiving new applications. So we'll only pay for 3 months, but we'll continue to receive applications until we pronounce on the closing date.
So how much money do you still have left in the kitty to disburse in terms of TERS?
In terms of TERS, we have 13 billion rands left.
13 billion. And how many people, more or less, are you still expecting to apply?
Given that the economy has relaxed, we are expecting that the numbers are going to realistically drop and possibly drop by 50%. Such that we should be able to pay, let's say, maybe 2 million South Africans in the month of June or less.
Well, just hoping that line will hold for us. Speaking to Mr. Teboho Maruping of the Unemployment Insurance Fund. Now, Mr. Maruping, claims were also coming via businesses as opposed to individuals to begin with. You later changed that dispensation, which did create problems of its own. And people are still complaining that they have not received money, even though they've tried to get back on the system. So what have you picked up in that regard, with regard to the system, enabling people to actually go on and rectify if they need to, or add any additional information?
Yeah, one of our greatest challenges that we had previously was the understanding of the CSV file. In the main, the CSV file makes it possible for us to process within 48 hours. And a number of people struggled in the beginning, but we've since simplified that form of submitting so that certain areas are easily defined for people just to punch in your ID number instead of putting dots and commas where you're not supposed to be putting these dots and commas. And where it's supposed to be a word, you put word. So we've simplified the process even further. To an extent that if you are applying for June and your employees have not changed, you don't have to add employees anymore. You just have to indicate if the employees have changed or have not changed. If you say your employees have not changed, you just click submit and it processes. We had our first successful case yesterday of someone who said it has been the simplest process to apply for June.
So one case yesterday. Well, eventually we'll get there. I hope some point, Mr. Maruping. But just looking at some of the other problems that seem to have crept up here. It was reported that UIF said it had found 75 reported cases where applicants may have attempted to defraud the system. Tell us about those, and also whether any charges have been laid against anyone.
There's three main cases. One, the Hawks have already pounced on an individual. I think it was in the media, reported in the Sunday Times. We have two more cases that I cannot divulge at this stage. We are finalizing the few details. People are signing affidavits, they are signing statements, and once the statements have been reviewed by the Hawks will pounce on the specific individuals that have been identified. But also, we are trying to avoid risking the success of the case. So that's the list I can give you. And on other cases, Sakina, we picked up that there are companies that have applied for dead people as one case. They've applied for people who have died. When we engage these companies, they say, no, when we applied for UIF, we didn't clean up our data, and we just submitted the data as is. So we took their statement as is, that they possibly didn't clean up the data. Some of them applied for people that were on maternity leave, that UIF was paid for, and some of them applied for people that had already dismissed. These are some of the main cases, but the key fraudulent cases, Sakina, are with the Hawks, and I think in time we'll pronounce with the Hawks once the arrest has been secured.
And if I just may belabor this a little bit, speaking of key cases, there's a specific case of 5.7 million rand that was being investigated by the Hawks, which found its way into a certain man's bank account. And it is speculated to be an inside job. So what is the UIF's understanding of what happened there?
Once again, it's a risky terrain to pronounce now, Sakina. But what we have so far, in simple terms, it's a stolen identity, that this person stole the identity of the company and used it to apply for the UIF benefit. But let me leave it at that for now, Sakina, and not divulge more information in the case.
All right, let's look to the lockdown now and lockdown regulations being eased, but the economic reports are warning us that there will be more job losses as people have been left unemployed as a result of this lockdown. Is there a chance, any sort of chance of an extension of the scheme?
I don't want to commit on that, but what I can tell you is, as in yesterday, we're discussing with the social partners on what else can be done, because there are certain areas that will not return immediately, and there are people with comorbidity that may have to not to return to work. So there's different permutations we're looking at. But the role of UIF goes beyond the public TERS, because as people lose this job, UIF once again will have to pay ordinary benefits. We have the temporary employee relief scheme, other than the COVID TERS, that UIF contributes towards. So UIF will shift its focus towards paying for the people who lose jobs. Will shift our focus towards paying for the other TERS scheme that we always had, to assist companies that are in distress, to help them revive and survive, and also to retain those jobs. That our shift will move towards.
Well, unfortunately, that picture freezing us out there with Mr. Teboho Maruping, the UIF Commissioner. We kind of lost you there for a moment, Mr. Maruping, but you were still explaining to us the extension of the scheme, saying you didn't want to commit.
Yes. Oh, yes. What I was saying is there's discussions as late as yesterday. We're discussing what else can be done for those people who will remain in lockdown beyond June. And the discussions are still continuing. But what I was further saying is UIF's role continues beyond the lockdown. We still have to pay for ordinary benefits for people who lose their jobs. There are people who may be going back to work for fewer days. We may have to pay for short-time benefits. We also have a temporary employee relief scheme that assists companies that are in distress, that have an opportunity to arise and go back and survive during this difficult time. So we still have a role to play in that space. So immediately, once we're done with payment of the COVID-19, we are shifting our focus immediately towards the other benefits that UIF is responsible for.
Okay, so with regard to people still waiting for their payments for April, for May, June has now come and gone. What is going to happen, Mr. Maruping? What should people do if they are still awaiting payment from UIF?
Oh, we are going to continue processing. We are going to continue resolving the issues that they still remain, and we are still going to continue paying until a time comes where we'll pronounce that we are now closing COVID-19 benefits.
And just with regard to challenges that you can admit to at this stage, what sort of challenges are you still facing at the moment?
I think one of the main ones, if you recall, when we went live with May payments, we had a fiber cable broken. And when we went live with June last week, we had something that we suspected could have been a cyber security breach, but fortunately it wasn't. It was a programming error, but we went live yesterday. So that was one of the system challenges that we've now resolved. We, in the beginning, had an issue with our call center, that our call center could not stomach the amount of calls that were coming through. And Harambe came through to help us, and they'll continue to help us for the next month of July also, so that at least there could be such a good transition as we bring back our staff. So those were our main issues with respect to the call center and some of the systems.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much, Mr. Teboho Maruping, Commissioner at the Unemployment Insurance Fund, talking to us about the assessment of the work done by the UIF and funds paid out thus far. And you heard him say that they had experienced some problems, technical and otherwise, but of course they will continue to pay out. So if you've started, if you're in the process, if you already applied or your employer has, I would suggest you just follow up at this stage, because he says they will continue to pay out. Let's take a quick break before